This is a Braniff video production presentation. Imagine what it would be like to wake up in the middle of the night and smell smoke in your house. If that were to happen, you would take the quickest route possible to get out while you still could. Should a fire, gas leak, or chemical spill happen in your home, there are a number of firefighting personnel and sophisticated equipment just minutes away to help. And you could stand outside your house while you're waiting for them to arrive. Now imagine that you wake up smelling smoke, but all of the doors are locked when you try to escape, and the nearest firemen and trucks are at least 20 minutes away. That might give you some idea of what it would be like to be trapped on an aircraft at 35,000 feet with a dangerous material on fire or giving off noxious or poisonous fumes. There is no escape, because an aircraft is totally isolated from help until it lands, because it's pressurized, because air circulates very quickly throughout the cabin. Any incident involving a dangerous substance on an aircraft in the air can quickly become urgent and could easily become life-threatening. Because of the life and death importance of controlling the carriage of any dangerous material on board our aircraft, it is essential that you understand the hazards involved with hazardous materials, that you're able to recognize the different forms that dangerous materials may take, and that you understand the few exceptions to the general rules we follow in preventing the carriage of dangerous goods on our aircraft. This videotape has been produced to make you aware of the extreme danger of hazardous materials and to prepare you to take the certification test. After you have completed viewing this presentation, you must complete the certification test, which is found by accessing Sabre SAI 10101. You must have a record of passing this test in your Sabre employee training record within the last 12 months in order to legally act as a customer service agent. Airlines are designated to be either a carrier or non-carrier of hazardous materials. Due to the enormous amount of paperwork and training required to act as a carrier of dangerous goods, we are not a carrier. Some airlines will allow shippers to ship certain dangerous materials, such as radioactive isotopes, cryogenic liquids, or acids, if the shipper pays a premium price for the shipment and also completes all of the proper paperwork. We are not one of the airlines which offer this service. We do not allow any hazardous materials on board our aircraft under any circumstances. A few minor exceptions will be fully explained later in this program. However, you must be able to identify the most likely forms of dangerous goods which passengers and small package shippers might attempt to put on board our aircraft. Our presentation on recognizing hazardous materials should begin with a quick overview of the different types or classifications given to the different materials. Located at your station in a conspicuous spot is a chart labeled Dangerous Goods, Hazard and Handling Labels, and it looks like this. You can see from the chart that there are 8 primary hazard handling label classes. You can also see that all of the variously colored hazard labels are in the shape of a diamond. Anytime you see any of these labels on a box, bag, or small package, you must not accept or load it. If you see a package or bag already on an aircraft with any of these labels, you must remove the article and report to your supervisor. Again, you are never permitted to accept or load any box, bag, or small package which has one of these diamond-shaped hazard labels attached to it. At the bottom of the chart, you can also see 4 handling labels, which should also cause you to further investigate the contents of any container to which it might be attached. Each of the hazard classes have their own uniquely dangerous characteristics. It's important that you have a general idea of what each hazard class represents in order to fully appreciate just how dangerous they are. let's take a closer look at each of the hazard classes and briefly describe what makes it a hazard. We'll also look at the circumstances and ways in which a passenger may knowingly or unknowingly try to take a dangerous material on board our aircraft. What does the symbol on this orange diamond suggest to you? If you said an explosion, you'd be exactly right. Hazardous Class 1 labels designate explosive substances. Notice the hazard class number, which is shown on the bottom of each diamond-shaped label. There is no need to describe the damage that an explosion in a cargo pit next to a fuel tank in a flying aircraft could do. Some of the materials which are considered explosive are bombs, flares, fireworks, dynamite, and blasting caps. You must refuse to accept any bag, box, or small package which has an orange Class 1 explosive label attached to it. You should also be alert to the type of passenger who could conceivably be checking as baggage or carrying on board an unmarked container with an explosive substance inside. Recently, a number of military recruits were found taking live hand grenades home as souvenirs in their duffel bags. Fireworks could also be carried in an unmarked box by an uninformed passenger. As you know, it is the responsibility of the agent first accepting the unmarked box to ask what is inside it. If you're in doubt as to the true nature or contents of a particular bag or container, you should refuse acceptance until further investigation may be completed. As we continue looking over our chart, we find that hazardous class number 2 deals with gases. As you can see, there are 3 distinctly different colored labels, all with the hazard class 2 printed at the bottom. There are non-flammable compressed gases, flammable gases, and poison gases. Needless to say, you wouldn't want any kind of compressed gas leaking into the pressurized cabin of an aircraft. You would obviously check any cylindrical container for any of these 3 hazardous materials. Scuba diving tanks may be transported on our aircraft as long as the tanks are completely depressurized and their valves are in the open position. Some of the forms that unacceptable substances may take are chlorine gas under pressure, tear gas, and mace. Again, if you see any of these labels or suspect that a person may be trying to take one of these gases on board, you must not accept the bag or shipment. Hazard Class 3 is denoted with a red hazard label with the number 3 at the bottom. As the label states, it represents flammable liquids. A flammable liquid is, by definition, a liquid which has a flash point below 100 degrees. Flash point is the lowest temperature at which a liquid will give off vapor which will ignite when it comes into contact with a spark or flame. For some liquids, such as gasoline or alcohol, the flash point occurs at normal room temperatures. This means that these liquids give off an explosive vapor at temperatures that could be found in the cabin or cargo holds on board our aircraft. Should you see this label, you must refuse to accept the bag or package. As we have mentioned, there may be instances where passengers or shippers unknowingly try to carry a hazardous material on board. In the case of flammable liquids, this could mean such liquids as gasoline, paint, paint thinner, industrial solvents, turpentine, or alcohol. You should be especially observant of passengers checking toolboxes, cardboard or wooden boxes with stains, or boxes and luggage with an acrid smell. The smell will often be your clue to further investigate the contents of the package. If you're in doubt, you must refuse to accept the package or bag. The 4th hazard class involves flammable solids. There are 3 distinct labels in Class 4. The first Class 4 label designates solid materials which will burn all by themselves. Some of the substances which might fit this category are charcoal briquettes, matches, and cellulose movie film. The next Class 4 label designates spontaneously combustible materials. As you know, spontaneous combustion means that the substance can catch fire all by itself without any spark or ignition. The most common type of spontaneously combustible material is oily rags. The last Class 4 label identifies a substance which will give off flammable vapors if it gets wet. Most aluminum powders fall into this category. If you see any of these Class 4 labels, you must refuse to accept the package or bag. You should be especially alert for the presence of oily rags in the equipment and boxes carried by construction or maintenance personnel. Some tourist areas sell large boxes of long matches, which would be considered flammable solids. The solid yellow label identifies the two Class 5 hazards. Class 5-1 designates oxidizers. An oxidizer is a substance which gives off large amounts of oxygen. While the substance itself may not burn, the excess oxygen it gives off will cause any fire in its proximity to burn very intensely. One of the more common types of oxidizers are chlorine water purifying compounds. These are used primarily in swimming pools. Often, these white powdery chemicals are packaged in plastic sacks which will say chlorine on the outside. Class 5-2 designates organic peroxides. An organic peroxide is a combustible itself and gives off large amounts of oxygen. Many substances which have names ending with the suffix IDE or ATE fall into this category. Some examples are acetyl benzoyl peroxide, ammonium dichromate, and ammonium nitrate fertilizers. These chemicals can be packed in cardboard containers, plastic sacks, or boxes. Should you see any of these labels or substances, you must refuse the package or box. You should question any box, sack, or container as to its content. A white diamond identifies hazardous Class 6, which are poisons. 3 Class 6 hazard labels denote the different types of poisonous substances. The skull and crossbones mean a poisonous liquid or solid. Some of the more commonly used poisons are pesticides. A large number of pesticides, which can be purchased off the shelf, are very poisonous and must not be accepted for carriage. Be especially alert for pesticides when you see farming or gardening equipment being checked or shipped. Some poisons can be dangerous to food products. Although it is not likely that we will be shipping food products, we would not want in any case to ship a container with this label. Finally, this Class 6 label identifies poisons which are called ichthyological agents. This basically means a substance which can cause an infectious disease. Different vaccines, medical samples, and some insecticides fall into this category. We will not accept any container marked this way, nor will we accept any of these substances which we might identify which are not marked. Doctors and scientists, hospital workers, and others should be questioned carefully about boxes or containers which they may wish to check as baggage or ship as small packages. Anytime you see this symbol, you should think radioactive. There are 3 types of Class 7 radioactive labels: 1, 2, and 3. The higher the number, the greater the radioactivity. Radioactive materials have a cumulative effect, which is determined by how much radioactivity is being given off and how long a person or animal is in the proximity of the radioactivity. It is impossible to feel or detect the damage that radioactivity is doing while exposed to a radioactive source. We will not accept any radioactive materials for shipment. Again, the most common use of radioactive materials which might be presented for shipping are for medical purposes. You should question anything being shipped for medical purposes and watch carefully for these labels. Finally, the graphic picture on the hazard label for Class 8 shows the effects of a corrosive. A corrosive is a substance which will burn or destroy human tissue, and in some cases will even burn or destroy metallic aircraft skin. A good example of a corrosive which will damage aluminum aircraft skin is mercury. Mercury, which leaks in an aircraft cargo bin, can cause the aircraft to be taken out of service for an extended period of time. All traces of it must be removed, and all skin it has come in contact with is checked for corrosion. Some electrical equipment has mercury in its switches. You should always ask if electrical equipment has mercury in the switches, and if the shipper or passenger does not know, do not accept the article without investigating more. The International Air Transport Association produced this chart. Although not shown as such on this chart, IATA, as they are known, has classified all the other miscellaneous dangerous goods as Class 9. In the United States, Class 9 hazardous materials are known as Other Regulated Materials, or ORMs. Magnetic materials are considered in this category. As the label shows, magnets can interfere with the aircraft compass and give false readings to the flight crew. For this reason, we will not accept magnetic materials or containers with this label on our aircraft. The large speakers used by music groups often have large magnets built into them and must not be accepted. However, oil field exploration often involves what they call magnetic tapes, which are not actually magnetic in the same sense and may be shipped on our aircraft. Some of the other miscellaneous Class 9 and ORM substances are asbestos, machines with internal combustion engines, polystyrene beads, and dry ice. We will not accept any of these materials for shipping or as checked baggage, with just a very few limited exceptions which we will review in just a moment. To finish out our overview of the chart, please note the handling labels at the bottom of the chart. We have already mentioned that magnetized materials are a Class 9 hazard and are not acceptable. If you see the orange rectangular danger label, you must not load the container or allow it to be checked. The arrow labels show that a container must be loaded and shipped with the arrows pointed up. These arrows on a box should alert you to the possibility of a dangerous substance in the container. You should question the passenger or shipper very carefully to determine that there are not hazardous materials involved. Finally, the chart also has a section called Secondary Hazard Labels. Some substances have more than one dangerous aspect. A poison may also be a flammable liquid, or an oxidizer may also be a corrosive. In this case, a container may have an additional secondary label attached as well as a primary label. Obviously, you could not accept a container with any of these labels. As we have said, if you should see any of these labels on any container or bag, you must not allow it to be checked or shipped. If the person shipping the article, container, or luggage tells you that the label is an old label and there are actually no dangerous goods inside, you still are not allowed to accept it until the label is removed or completely obliterated. We should mention that you should have the customer remove or obliterate the label, not you. Also note that the word obliterate means that the label is not recognizable as a label. A label with an X drawn through it is not considered obliterated. You must inquire about the contents of any unmarked box or container. The contents should be written on the bag tag or on the box itself. Finally, if you are working the ramp and while you are loading baggage or containers on the aircraft, you see one of these labels or find liquid or powder leaking from a container, or if you smell a pungent or acrid odor coming from any article, you should immediately set it aside and have a supervisor investigate it. Don't assume that just because a bag or package has been accepted at the ticket counter that it does not have a dangerous good inside. The government expects anyone who touches material loaded on an aircraft to be able to recognize a hazardous material and to know what to do with it if found. This rule also applies to through bags and cargo which may have been loaded upline. Do not assume that just because the material was loaded at a previous city that it might not contain a hazardous material. Counter and gate agents must also be very vigilant about the carry-on articles which passengers plan to take on board our aircraft. A true account tells of a man carrying glass bottles of bleach in a cardboard box on board and then stowing them in the overhead bin. During flight, the box shifted. Some of the bottles broke, and bleach started dripping on the heads of passengers all up and down that side of the aircraft. Can you imagine how bleach would burn? Not to mention the effect that it would have on hair and clothing. The point is that you must be very aware of the dangers involved and not assume that every passenger or shipper understands the risks as he should. If you are given any of the following as a written or verbal description of the contents of any container, you should investigate further. A dangerous good may be present which is not immediately evident. Breathing apparatus, which may include cylinders of compressed air or oxygen. Bull semen, which is often shipped in dry ice or liquefied gas. Camping gear often contains matches, camp stove fuel, or sterno-type fuels. Cryogenic means an extremely cold liquefied gas. Dental apparatus may contain hazardous chemicals such as resins or solvents. Drilling and mining equipment may contain explosives. Electrical equipment may contain magnetized materials or mercury in switches and tubes. Frozen fruits or vegetables may be packed in dry ice. Household goods may contain paint, aerosols, or bleach. Instruments may contain mercury or magnetized material. Laboratory or testing equipment could contain dangerous chemicals. Machine parts could contain adhesives, paints, sealants, or solvents. Medical supplies can contain dangerous chemicals. Pharmaceuticals could contain dangerous chemicals. Photographic supplies could contain dangerous chemicals. Repair kits could contain adhesives, paints, organic peroxides, and solvents. Samples for testing can contain infectious substances. Swimming pool chemicals can contain hazardous chemicals. Vaccines may be packaged in dry ice, and again, look closely and investigate any of these articles. Even after taking every known precaution, it is still possible that hazardous material could find its way onto the ramp or into an aircraft. If such a hazardous material should leak, ignite, give off fumes, or be damaged in any way, you should know exactly what steps should be taken to lessen the risk to passengers, employees, and equipment. Should you discover a dangerous material in a reacting state, you should follow these steps. You must first isolate the area. Do not directly handle the material. Do not let any leaking liquid touch your skin, and do not breathe any of the vapors. Keep everyone away from the area, and if possible, move all equipment away. If needed, move the aircraft away from the area. Be sure that no one else approaches the area. Move all people upwind of the hazard. Even small amounts of some vapors can be harmful and can even cause permanent damage. Notify your supervisor. Be sure that someone is posted, and at all times keep other people and equipment out of the area. Your supervisor will then be responsible for assuring that the proper steps are taken to remove the hazard and for completing any follow-up reports. Again, do not touch the material. Isolate the area, move all people upwind, and notify your supervisor. Be sure someone is posted to keep other people away until the material is properly removed. If the above situation had actually occurred, it would need to be reported to the Federal Aviation Administration Security Office. The FAA defines hazardous material situations in one of two ways. First, there is a hazardous material discrepancy. A discrepancy occurs when a hazardous material has been discovered in a bag or container and the passenger or shipper did not report a hazardous material as being in the bag or container. Even if the hazardous material has not discharged or leaked, if it is discovered, it must be reported. The method for reporting is to call the nearest FAA security office immediately and give them the following information: your name and phone number, the name of the airline, where the bag or package is now, the name of the person shipping the package or checking the bag, and what substance was discovered and what happened to it. Follow the directions of the local FAA security office for any other written reports which may be necessary. The second situation is much more serious. It is called a hazardous materials incident. By definition, an incident is when someone is killed or requires hospitalization, or property damage is more than $50,000, or if a radioactive or ecological shipment is in a fire, breaks, or spills. Should any of these criteria be met, you should, at the earliest possible opportunity, call the nearest FAA security office with the following information: your name, the name and address of the airline, the phone number where you can be called, the date, time, and location of the incident, the extent of any injuries, the type of hazardous material involved, if known, and what the present status of the situation is. Again, follow the directions of the FAA security office regarding any reports which must be sent. You may contact staff services or the training department for help in completing the reports. You normally will have 15 days to complete the written report after an incident. As we mentioned earlier, even though we are not a carrier of dangerous goods, there are certain exceptions to the general rules where we do allow certain quantities of a dangerous material to be checked or shipped. Per government regulations, we are allowed to carry the following substances and materials on our aircraft: the fuel and oil, as long as they are in the proper fuel and oil tanks; any other hazardous materials required for the operation of the aircraft; aircraft parts and supplies, as long as they are packaged at least as well as the regulations require for other restricted materials. This includes aircraft batteries in metal containers and aircraft tires, as long as their maximum pressure has not been exceeded. Personal toiletry articles are acceptable, such as perfume, cologne, makeup, and aerosol cans, as long as the total liquid capacity does not exceed 75 ounces. 75 ounces is just a little bit more than a half-a-gallon container of milk. Aerosol cans cannot exceed 16 fluid ounces. Small arms ammunition can be carried if it is carried in the passenger's checked baggage and is securely packed in the original manufacturer's container or in a wood or metal box. The total weight of the ammunition must not be greater than 10 pounds. We will supply oxygen to passengers in flight as long as it is the airline's own oxygen. The passenger may not use his own oxygen supply and may only take his own oxygen bottle as checked baggage as long as it has been completely discharged. We will allow a small amount of radioactivity found in pacemakers and radioactive pharmaceuticals injected into people as long as they are in the people. We allow dry ice to be carried on board or checked in luggage under the following guidelines. The package the dry ice is in must be able to breathe, that is, it cannot be airtight. If the dry ice is to be carried in the cabin of the aircraft, the weight of the dry ice cannot exceed 4 pounds. If the dry ice is to be in a container to be checked as baggage, the total dry ice per piece cannot be more than 5 pounds. This means that there could be 4 or 5 different bags or containers with dry ice in them, as long as each individual bag had less than 5 pounds in it. The agent accepting the dry ice should then complete the Notice of Dry Ice on Board form. Show the originating station, the connecting station if there is one, and the final destination station. Next, show the number of pieces and the total weight of the dry ice. Be sure the total weight is the weight of the dry ice, not the total weight of the bag or container. Then put a check mark in the box that shows where the dry ice will be carried. Show the bin location or seat number depending on which one applies. Finally, sign the form and attach the top white copy to the forms which go to the flight crew. Make sure the ramp crew gets the yellow copy. This will allow them to avoid loading animals in the same bin with dry ice. And then file the pink copy with the forms for that flight. The agent accepting the dry ice should also attach the dry ice label to the bag or container and write on the label what is being kept cold. One last note about dry ice. Any single container or bag with more than 5 pounds of dry ice inside falls under the regulations for ORMA. ORMA is a restricted article and cannot be accepted. If you see a box or container with ORMA and dry ice written on it, you cannot accept it for carriage. Items such as alcoholic beverages, perfumes, and colognes purchased in duty-free shops can be accepted as carry-on baggage. Some persons have mechanical limbs which are powered by carbon dioxide cylinders. The cylinders on the limb itself and enough spare cylinders to last the duration of the trip are also acceptable. Finally, wheelchairs with non-spillable batteries are acceptable as long as you observe these steps. First, the battery must be disconnected. The battery terminals must be insulated to prevent short circuits. This can be accomplished with caps supplied by the passenger or by taping the terminals completely with electrician's tape. Finally, the battery must remain securely attached to the wheelchair. The wheelchair must be loaded in an upright position when loaded in the cargo bin. We are currently unable to accept spillable wet cell batteries. We're presently researching the possibility of providing suitable containers which would allow the carriage of spillable batteries. Finally, we will accept one catalytic hair curler per passenger as long as it is carried in the passenger's checked luggage and the safety cover is securely fitted over the heating elements. The gas refills for the catalytic hair curlers are not permitted in either carry-on or checked luggage. Well, so far in this program, we have talked about the different kinds of hazards and how to recognize them, what to do if you find a hazardous material or have a hazardous material incident, and what the exceptions are to the general rules. In the last few moments, we would like to review the legal documents that we have used to determine our policies as a non-carrier of hazardous materials. The first document you've already seen and become familiar with. That's the Dangerous Goods Hazard and Handling Labels chart. There should be a chart like this conspicuously displayed somewhere at your station. If you do not know where it is, ask your supervisor or manager. This chart should be a constant reminder to watch out for the labels shown and refuse or remove any container on which you see them. The actual regulations which govern the carriage and handling of hazardous materials in the United States are found in the Code of Federal Regulations number 49, also referred to as CFR 49. Your station also has a copy of this book on hand. The sections of CFR 49 which are directly related to our regulations are Part 171, which contains the general information, regulations, and definitions about hazardous materials. Part 172, which deals with required paperwork, marking, labeling, and placarding. Part 173, which deals with packaging requirements. And finally, Part 175, which deals specifically with the regulations pertaining to carriage of hazardous materials by aircraft. As an example, Part 175.25 covers the signage requirements for warning passengers about the regulations governing the carriage of hazardous materials. As you can see, this information is required to be conspicuously posted at all boarding areas, ticket counters, or baggage checking locations. All of our rules and exceptions as a non-carrier are based on the regulation explained in CFR 49. Finally, each city has also been provided with a copy of the International Air Transport Association's Dangerous Goods Regulations Manual. IATA is an association of airlines who agree to follow certain consistent rules and procedures in their handling of passengers, aircraft, and cargo. While we are not a member of IATA or bound by its regulations, the Dangerous Goods Handbook is a useful reference source of information. Should you have questions about the characteristics of a questionable material, you can consult the alphabetical list of dangerous goods in the blue pages. For example, if you had a box with magnesium diamite written on it, you could turn to the blue pages, which would tell you that this substance is a Class 4.2 hazard and is spontaneously combustible. The yellow pages show packing instructions for different hazardous materials. In Section 7, you will find a recap of all of the hazard labels we have already talked about earlier. Again, we are not governed by the IATA manual. It is an excellent source of information. We hope this program has heightened your awareness about dangerous goods. We just cannot allow even one of them to get on board our aircraft because the results could be deadly. Now that you have finished viewing this presentation, you are ready to complete your certification process by completing your certification test. This test is accessed by pulling up SAI number 10101. This has been a Braniff video production presentation.